All right, are we ready? Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. This program, Artificial Intelligence and Qualitative Research Designs, Advantages, Challenges, Ethics, and Recommendations, is sponsored by the Student Engagement Subcommittee of the Membership Committee of SRNS and in support of the SRNS Student Network. But we're happy to have all members of SRNS and guests to join us today. This program is provided by the Qualitative RIIG, and I will let them take over and tell you a little bit more about their work and this program. Thank you so much.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Jean Prose Hemphill. I'm the director of the PhD nursing program at East Tennessee State University, College of Nursing, and we want to thank you and Dr. Neese for this invitation. So our team is listed here with the topics that each will cover. Speakers will introduce themselves before their presentation, and then we will take questions at the end of our presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, so the presenters have no conflicts of interest, and this symposium is based on a publication in the SNRS journal, Research in Nursing and Health. And there's the reference. I will not read the objectives, but these are our objectives. So what I want to start out with, first of all, are definitions, because AI is coded by a human to access billions of pieces of information. And one of the things that is interesting about it is that the definitions are accessible all over the place. And it accesses billions of pieces of language information. And when you talk about machine learning, the machine is not learning. There is a programmer who writes hundreds and hundreds of steps of mathematical algorithms that are sequenced and entered by programmers. It does not code itself. It eventually develops code as you go along, but it is coded by the people who have developed that particular program. Okay, because we talk about things not in terms, we talk about AI in terms of human qualities, but in reality, it's a mathematical function. We do not talk about it, and we should talk about it according to its functionality. Okay, so what is a neural network? A neural network is actually what is within the software. It's actually software, and it takes the codes that are entered, and then it searches large data caches for words and phrase matching, and it weights them. No one knows how it weights them to produce an output. And when they talk about large language models, these are actually the mathematical algorithms that are created by humans. They're referred to as thinking, but the machine does not think. It follows instructions that were entered by reasoning of human programmers. So the mathematical algorithms can sequence. So it looks like it's reasoning, but it really is pattern matching, as our brain does, and then it sequence responses. Output. So what is a prompt and training? Again, these are pieces of text. You type in pieces of text for what you're looking for. It's converted to a mathematical algorithm. The algorithm then goes out into cyberspace everywhere, and scrapes caches of information that match what is put in. And then what you want is an output. You want a desired outcome. Now, the output should align with what you've put in, your goal, what you wanted to do. It actually aligns with the goals developed by the programmers. That's why you have to make sure the output is correct. They may not align. So when they use the term convergence output is consistent with the goals of the plan. But hallucinations refer to when it's just false or made up. That's why your outputs may not be correct. Okay, fine. Automated programs such as Grammarly or WritingPal, they use natural language processing algorithms, again, mathematical, to assess output. There is research now that is not evaluating writing language. They're now evaluating writing language proficiency of these different writing programs. So now I'll be turning this over to our next presenter, and these topics will be presented in order by each of our presenters.
Okay. Thank you, Jean. My name is Dr. Karen Carver. I'm an assistant professor at ETSU with Jean, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the advantages of using AI in qualitative research. So I think a lot of us are pretty well versed in what potential advantages are out there in the use of AI. But what I want to focus on is what we found when we reviewed the literature in terms of what is being actually published. And so when we were reviewing it, we found several themes. The use of AI as a time saver and a cost saver. Cost savings are recognized mostly by the overall shortened study duration and decreased workload and hours of research staff. There's also time-saving advantages in the ability of the researcher to process information quicker. Some examples of that might be the use of AI to assist with literature review and synthesis of existing knowledge, as well as with data analysis. And we'll talk a little bit about that. You can go next slide, Keith. There's application for AI to assist researchers with recruitment, retention, and participant engagement within qualitative research. Several studies are using chatbots as an assistant aid to reach out to participants who may be potentially interested or qualify for a research study, as well as reminders for follow-up or reminders for interviews that have been scheduled. AI can also be helpful in searching data sources on the web, such as looking through social media content for certain research interests or identifying potential sources of information. So some of the advantages in research design and data management. AI can be very useful in the creation of surveys and questionnaires, as well as the potential to test questions or optimize questions with chatbots. When conducting qualitative interviews, AI has demonstrated a lot of usefulness in transcription services, which also results in cost savings from traditional alternatives such as manual human transcription. Additionally, it can be very useful in summarizing or synthesizing large data sets. Of course, we want to emphasize that this is an aid and not a substitute for human interpretation. And then in the literature, we found that AI is being utilized across multiple different methodologies in qualitative research. Some that we found specific examples of are content analysis, thematic analysis with supporting the iterative theme development of human researchers, phenomenological analysis, looking at word patterns or phrases that are repeated across interviews and kind of quantifying that. Mixed methods, bridging the qualitative and quantitative data sources, looking for connections, and then coding. Usefulness in the initial pattern recognition and categorization. And then, of course, that ability to synthesize large data sets to assist researchers. Of course, these are not exclusive advantages, but it is representative of some of the themes that we found.
Thank you, Karen. My name is Dr. Horn from Florida Atlantic University, and I'll be presenting ethical considerations for using AI in qualitative research, along with Cheryl Wells, who is also a co-author of this section, who is a PhD student at the University of Arkansas. So core ethical challenges in regards to utilizing AI within qualitative research is first data ownership and rights. So sharing qualitative data within the AI platforms it runs a risk, right? Participants need to be able to consent to the specific use of their data, the specific use of their stories and their information. So there are questions regarding who owns that intellectual property when a participant decides to enlist in your study. Privacy and confidentiality. As we know, qualitative research often utilizes sensitive qualitative data such as personal narratives, vulnerable experiences, and those identifiable details must be protected from unauthorized exposure and data breaches, which we cannot speak to in regards to AI and how that system is utilized. We want to make sure that there is bias and fair, that there is no bias and that there is fairness. So AI systems really amplify the information that they're trained on. So what is put in is really what's put out. So we have to, as researchers, understand that AI may amplify or perpetuate stereotypes or misinterpretations due to cultural nuances. And then transparency and accountability. So the AI black box, nobody knows who owns AI, nobody knows where the data goes, nobody knows where these analyses are coming from and why they're being analyzed in that matter. So we really can't speak to the output of AI, which is key in qualitative research. How did you come up with your themes? Next slide, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Cheryl Wells here. I just want to share a few quotes just to keep us grounded as researchers. Researchers remain fully accountable for all AI-assisted work and its impact on the participants, the communities, and society. The use of AI does not diminish or transfer this responsibility, but it amplifies it. When AI is involved, the researcher must be even more vigilant about ethical implications and potential harms. Inputting data into AI does not mean that AI is responsible. You, as the researcher, are ultimately still responsible for the data. Every choice that you're making in regards to AI needs to be thought through and ethically considered. When we use AI in qualitative research, we need to consider why we want to implement a study using AI. Does it serve the participants' best interests? Are we only using it to make our lives easier, to expedite our work, hurry up and meet those deadlines for protection in our matrices? Or are we using it because the participant would benefit from the results? And we need to consider if it would be harmful, even if that harm is unintended. Next slide.
So remember that good ethics and good research are not in tension. They reinforce one another, and a good researcher would consider how does good ethics amplify their good research. So again, with informed consent, how is AI going to be utilized within your data collection, transcription processes, analysis, even storage of stories? All of these need to be explicitly stated within the consent. Participants should have the option to opt out of AI-assisted processes where feasible. Remember, that consent processes should clearly state what AI tools you're using, how you will be using them, how the data will be processed, and whether any third-party platforms are involved. Be transparent. There should be clear transparency in your analytical decisions. As Cheryl stated with the previous slide, why are you utilizing AI in the analysis? Clear documentation to how AI contributed to whether it be theme generation, whether it be interpretation of stories. How did AI assist your thought process and why? And then researchers should be able to justify those interpretations. You cannot defer to AI as the authority, right? We are still the brain, not the system. Next slide, please.
As Cassandra said, remember that the responsibility and accountability falls solely on the researcher. AI is a supportive tool and does not replace the researcher's judgment. The researcher is responsible for the interpretive decision-making, ethical compliance, as well as the accuracy of the reporting. When we consider reflexivity and interpretive integrity, this also remains the responsibility of the researcher. For example, when you consider a reflexive journal, an overuse of AI undermines your bias, your reflexivity, and diminishes the methodological rigor of your work. The qualitative research values context, meaning, and researcher reflexivity, but AI lacks the cognitive ability to interpret the nuances, the emotions, or the cultural context of the work. AI cannot reason and relies on input from the researchers to interpret nuances, the emotions, or the context of the data.
Bias, fairness, and participant agency. So AI systems, as Cheryl stated, right, it doesn't take into account cultural nuances, cultural interpretations, appropriate cultural behaviors, gender, racial, or even linguistic biases, particularly if you decide to upload a transcription into AI system and there someone has an accent, how does that play into that? Dominant narratives in the training data. So we have to understand that the dominant cultures in which that are present in our society will be what the AI systems are trained on. So this can lead to marginalization of certain voices, skewed interpretation of participants' experiences, right? Reduced participant voice. Researchers need to ensure that silence does not distort the participants' experience, and researchers have to critically consider the output that AI presents to you in conjunction with and the participants' stories and the actual experience of you sitting with your participant and not deeming AI the expert, but rather you the expert, and AI can be utilized and as an assistive device.
Ethical review and governance and compliance. Remember, when we're considering the ethical review boards, that these processes are still evolving with AI, and sometimes we may be looking for guidance where there isn't any. As AI evolves, we are evolving and the policies are evolving. So we sometimes may find a lack of clear guidance in how to use AI ethically. However, the researchers should explicitly disclose the use of AI, follow the emerging guidelines as best practices, and then update their protocols and guidelines as the tools evolve and as these guidelines evolve. If you're going to use cloud storage, you need to remember that these need to be password protected and secure. There is a risk for data breaches or unauthorized access, and therefore you must follow the legal policies and keep up to date as the policies evolve, and especially when we consider data retention and deletion policies.
So, as we stated previously, these guidelines, they're living, they're breathing, they're growing in real time. AI does not replace you as the researcher. You cannot, allow AI to interview your participant, then allow AI to transcribe the output, then allow AI to analyze the output, and then just report what AI has given you. That is not quality research. So, as you consider how to integrate AI, if you must integrate AI or if you should integrate AI, consider your university and legal policies. A lot of these, as we stated, are being constructed in real time. So familiarize yourself with these evolving standards. That's what IRB is there for. That's what institutional governing bodies are for. And understand if you are utilizing an AI platform provided by your institution, what are the intellectual property rights and storage data and how they have secured that particular AI model for your use. Disclose AI very clearly. We've stated that before, how you intend to use it, analysis, output, storage. Protect confidential data. Do not put details, no matter how tempting, into AI to make AI more accurate. You have a responsibility to your participant to protect your participant's identity and to protect your participant's story. It is their lived experience. So it is important that if you decide to utilize AI at any point of qualitative research, that it is de-identified data, that it is in a secure platform to the best of your ability, and that there is some type of encryption, again, to the best of your ability. I'm sure we've all received notices that, systems have been hacked. So consider that when using AI. And again, engage with living guidelines, stay engaged with your professional organizations, attend workshops like this that, your organizations are putting on so that it can contribute to your collective knowledge and your responsible use of qualitative research. Next slide, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Horn. I'm Dr. Nida Matthew Joseph, Associate Professor at the City School of Nursing, University of Texas Health Science Center, and Dr. Alicia Ledford, Assistant Professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We will be presenting about the limitation and challenges of artificial intelligence in qualitative research. So there are some limitations and challenges. Those are loss of human interpretive depth, reliability and trust concerns, inappropriate substitution for human participants, over automation and loss of researcher agency, and some technical limitations. So the first one is loss of human interpretive depth. AI can support qualitative research, but it cannot replace the human ability to interpret emotion, context, culture, and ambiguity. AI can produce incorrect code and misunderstand context and cultural meaning. It has challenges to interpret with non-textual data. Basically, AI excels at surface level pattern recognitions, but lacks deep contextual understanding or reflexivity. So I will provide some real examples to show how easily meaning can be lost and distorted. Next slide, please. Usually, qualitative research lean into ambiguity, but AI tend to resolve it prematurely. For example, a participant in an interview says it is complicated. I don't know how to feel about it. So human researcher probes deeper or code it as tension. AI may categorize it as uncertainty and move on. This removes the richness that the qualitative work depends on. We need rich data for qualitative data analysis, interpretation, and for research writing. Next slide, please. AI is an expert in surface level pattern recognition, but lack deep contextual understanding or reflexivity. For example, in an interview, a participant says, I guess things are fine. If that's what you want to hear, a human researcher hears this as a sarcasm or a frustration or a power dynamics, but AI do not know that. So AI often interprets literally as things are fine. This leads to misinterpretation of emotional nonsense and loss of meaning. Next slide, please. Now, cultural. Another challenge is challenge with non-textual data. AI struggles to detect the meaning of embedded tone. It cannot adequately describe the cultural norms, so it can lead to incorrect coding and misunderstanding of context and cultural meaning also. For example, a participant says, my mother told me I need to fix my face before church. In many culture, this means stop looking upset. AI may interpret this as cosmetic surgery or appearance-related pressure. So this leads to incorrect coding and misunderstanding of cultural meaning and developing wrong or incorrect themes. Next slide, please. Challenges with non-textual data. AI struggles to detect the meaning embedded in tone, emotions, poses, body languages, or environmental cues that human detects instantly. For example, in a recorded video interview, the participant says, I am fine. But they are crying, avoiding eye contact, or wrinkling their hands during the interview. But AI can only analyze what the transcript is saying and misses the emotional reality involved with it. So, all in all, AI can support qualitative research, but it cannot replace the human ability to interpret emotion, context, culture, ambiguity. So, these real examples show how easily meaning can be lost or distorted. Now, next slide, please. Another challenge is reliability and trust concerns in AI use in qualitative research. If you use AI in qualitative research, there is risk of misuse and replacing human analysis. If we completely depend on AI analysis without human oversight, there are concerns about the accuracy and trustworthiness of AI generated insights. AI invents participant codes that never existed, and it can fabricate or oversimplify, as we all mentioned earlier. AI can also hallucinate plausible but false participant codes. Researchers must cross-check every AI-generated summary or code. So AI can support qualitative research, but it cannot be trusted blindly. It may hallucinate codes, misinterpret tone, and introduce cultural errors. Therefore, human verification is essential to maintain accuracy and integrity. Thank you.
Please go back 2 slides. Perfect. So when we're thinking about inappropriate substitution for human participants, we've alluded to this a couple of different times, but the idea is that AI itself um, could be used as a participant in qualitative research, replacing the human participation, right? Obviously, that raises a bunch of red flags and ethical concerns. So something to be aware of and to be cautious about. There's also this possibility of imposter participants in qualitative research. So depending on how you are going about your qualitative research, especially those who do qualitative studies online or are looking online at written data or journal data, etc., data that's coming from online. There's always that possibility that AI is kind of imposing as a participant in qualitative research. So something to also kind of be aware of, that can happen as well. And then this bot generated, and for example, there was also a bot generated responses in a study, and those were kind of like a word perfect response or story to stems or prompts that were given. And so just being aware of the fact that that again, bots and chat bots can be manipulated and used, not necessarily without your awareness, especially for online studies, and looking at those responses would be very concerning. Next slide. Over automation and loss of researcher agency, we've also alluded to this multiple times, right? What goes in is what comes out, dependence on training to generate this data output. AI oftentimes is, gathering and grabbing existing information from the web, and oftentimes that can be, as we've talked about, there can be gender bias, racial bias, socioeconomic bias, normative assumptions, and that's what AI is pulling from, right? And so that's what it might be informing and then generating and interpreting based on that. It's not going to be able to distinguish between what is biased and what isn't. And so that's really where the human researcher is incredibly important. And certainly those biases can distort qualitative findings. Next slide. So in summary, some of the technical limitations of utilizing AI is, again, especially if you're using it for analysis purposes, there's challenging its interpretive depth. Like there's a limit to the depth in which AI can interpret findings and analyze data. Rich interpretation towards quantitative style, so precision, right? So thinking again. AI is mathematically based. It kind of makes sense that it's looking for precision, right? And that it's going to lean more towards quantifying rather than that richness of depth. and thickness that we want in our qualitative work and analysis. And then again, that kind of leans into that risk of oversimplification, right? That oftentimes can happen. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. This is our recommendation and best practices with artificial intelligence use in qualitative research. My name is Dr. Vanessa Pugh, and I am a research scientist at Walden University. And my partner is Dauncey Epen. She'll also introduce herself. So next slide, please. So for this next section, we're going to be talking about key recommendations and 6 best practices for integrating AI into qualitative research. We'll start with interpretation and data visualization, research paradigm alignment, ethics, human oversight, and then, of course, the 6 best practices. So for preparation and data analysis, AI tools can be used, transcribing interviews can be a very tedious process, as everyone knows. You can use AI-based transcription tools to help with both accuracy and efficiency when you compare this to manual methods. Once your transcripts are prepared, researchers usually proceed with systematic coding and thematic analysis. AI can help with identifying patterns. However, you should make sure that these patterns and codes are aligned with your theoretical framework and research objectives. Additionally, AI tools can support data cleanings and the de-identification of sensitive data or information that you need to have in order to maintain privacy and ethical compliance. Next slide. So for interpretation and data visualization, AI can support your interpretation of your findings. It can be used to summarize responses by key themes or research questions. It's also valuable for identifying contrasting perspectives and emergent patterns with the data. These tools can also process large data sets a little bit more efficiently than if you use a traditional qualitative method. AI can also help with visual outputs such as clouds, conceptual maps, and charts, which can help you also enhance clarity and support how you're effectively communicating these findings to your audience. Next slide. So for your research paradigm alignment, it is essential that the use of AI aligns with your overarching research. It should be used to support, not disrupt, the chosen methodological approach that you have. Researchers should ensure that the tools employed reinforce your rigor, your consistency, and your integrity. Also, for ethical considerations, you must address those when working with AI, especially if you have a sensitive population or you're protecting, you must protect the data. You should also consult with your IRB boards or ethics committee to make sure that you're integrating your AI processes in the correct manner. Next slide, please. For ethics and documentation, transparency is going to be key. It's going to be crucial. Researchers should clearly identify the tools that they're using and why and what they're being used for. It is also important to describe how the AI-generated outputs are more validated, such as through triangulation or manual review. And any methodological limitations or ethical implications should be explicitly acknowledged. Also, when you talk about, I know they talked about informed consent earlier, but your informed consent process must include all AI disclosures and any kind of assistive analysis that you have used. Next slide, please. And then finally, with human oversight and integrity. Despite all the capabilities of AI, human researchers remain central to the process. Researchers must uphold principles of transparency, validity, reliability, and participant confidentiality throughout the study. Continuous human oversight should be maintained at every stage, from the time you collect the data to the interpretation and reporting. Ultimately, AI should be reviewed as a supportive tool rather than a substitute for your human expertise.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Dauncey Epen. I'm an associate professor at Physics School of Nursing, UT Health Houston. Actually, we'll be talking the best practices, which is more like a summary of what you have already listened. The best practice number 1, it is about enhanced understanding of the use of AI. there is a lot of emerging literature out there that is about how we can efficiently use AI in qualitative research. As you have already learned, AI could reduce labor-intensive tasks. Qualitative research is well known for how much of time is needed for transcription, coding, analysis, all that. AI could reduce those tasks. And however, it requires design and framework that enhance the AI applicability. So this is an article that we have reference listed at the end, how it actually shows how we can actually create a framework to enhance the use of AI in qualitative research. Next slide, please. And best practice too, as you already listened, transparency is extremely important. We have to make sure that we document the use of AI carefully as well as thoroughly. And this will make sure that we actually our research is trustworthy. And also we must work with the data scientists to develop transparent models. So transparency also support reproducibility and methodological rigor of qualitative research. Next slide, please. And best practice 3, research integrity. So we want to make sure as responsible qualitative researchers or responsible researchers, we are actually managing AI use very carefully to preserve research integrity, as well as safeguard the originality and authenticity of researchers' work. And as you've already listened, that we want to make sure that we always have an oversight, as well as interpretation of the qualitative research in a way that AI does not replace the human oversight. Next slide, please. And best practice for meaningful results are created when we use AI efficiently. Generative AI depends on the data provided, whatever data we input, the AI actually will produce output based on that. Therefore, researchers must have a deep and contextual understanding of the data. This ensures that we will ensure the validity of the credibility of the results. Next slide, please. So validity checks, all of you are as qualitative researchers, you're probably familiar with investigator triangulation. So validity check can be accomplished through investigator triangulation, where multiple researchers can actually check for coding, transcript, as well as work on analysis, and when we actually come to a consensus about the result. So the same practice can be applied to make sure that we actually have valid result. When we actually use AI, there is always better to have developed independent coding schemes. However, we want to make sure that whatever codes are generated by the researcher is compared with the AI-generated coding framework. So that way we will make sure that whatever results are produced is actually true to the data. Next slide, please. Privacy and confidentiality, you already have listened a lot about privacy and confidentiality. A lot of the organizations and universities actually do have secure platforms. They have their own generative AI platforms that will make sure that that will ensure the privacy of the data that we put in. And it is recommended to use those platforms. So ensuring strict privacy and confidentiality is important, and we do not want to disclose any participant identifying information on the AI platform. So also reach out to your IRB, Institutional Human Subjects Guidelines, as well as follow all the ethical standards as researchers that we are supposed to follow. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a summary of what we have discussed today, and it is actually, this article is actually by Ganguly et al., and this is very helpful. So they actually talk about how researchers must refer to external sources of information. For example, funding agencies. What other funding agencies talk about the responsible AI use? As well as what are your institutional resources and advice, and make sure that you actually get the training that is needed. And if you need to get educated in specific areas of AI, please make sure that you get yourself educated, as well as terms and conditions of use by the university is important. So by your organization, as well as you have to understand and learn about specific AI attributes, for example, predictive modeling. And we already talked about AI hallucinations and also knowledge cutoff, where AI, in certain point of time, determine a model's training data after which is AI is unaware about events, trends, or discoveries. So some of the models are frozen in time, so you have to be aware about that, as well as ethical concerns like authorship, academic integrity. So you have to acknowledge, you have to learn about, all those ethical concerns, like we already discussed all those things, as well as acknowledge and disclose resource, whatever, what AI tool you have used and communicate it. And also be aware about the long-term implications, for example, the legal consequences and what risk can happen to your organizations and how you can mitigate the legal consequences. It is always helpful to have that support available for researchers in your institution. So I think we have come to the end of this presentation. And I would like to end this presentation here. Thank you all for listening. And I would like to thank Dr. Nish, and her team, Student Engagement Network, for giving us this opportunity to present. And I would like to thank our Qualitative RIIG team, especially Dr. Hemphill, for leading this project or leading this presentation, and all our Qualitative RIIG team. And we are going to open this, for discussion at this time. Or questions. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for sharing this valuable information and your references and your recent publication. Really appreciate your time. This is a really important issue. I don't have a question, but I'll share an experience. I used some AI to help me with a qualitative research study, and I used Teams to do the transcription, which many of you have probably done before. And since that's a Microsoft product, when my Australian colleagues said PowerPoint, they were talking about an electrical outlet. But as you can imagine, Microsoft Teams capitalized PowerPoint like a PowerPoint slide presentation. And so I had to go in and amend that and translate that into electrical outlet before I then use ChatGPT to assist. And I think it's important to use the correct terminology to assist with some of the analysis. So that is an example. You shared some cultural things that we need to pay attention to, and linguistic things that we need to pay attention to. And that was one of them that I ran into that was really important from a transcription standpoint, as well as a next step. Every step of the way, the human brain has to be involved. So just wanted to share that in support of all of your great tips and advice.
Thank you, Beth. There's a
Oh.
question in the chat. How does AI and qualitative research work in parallel with qualitative software?
Well, this is Jean Hemphill. So that's a really good question. One of the recommendations that we have in our best practices includes the use of closed proprietary programs or a specific server that does not send private, confidential data and out into cyberspace so that anyone can access it. So many of the proprietary qualitative software programs advertise themselves as being closed. That is, it does not scrape information or send your information out into cyberspace where it's not open to anyone to access. So that's a very good question. You should still, however, because AI, even the closed programs, data match and look at patterns. No matter what they say, they still use mathematical patterns. You still need to make sure that what it is giving you in terms of coding match your conceptual framework and the philosophical underpinning on how you are interpreting that data, because the machine cannot do that. It's a very good question. One thing I would also like to add, remember that if you put your work in an open system, it's out there. So if you plan to publish some of your work, if you have already published your work, and it can be scraped, okay, scraped. The machine will get those words. So if you have privacy, you are working with human subjects, and you've got privacy and confidentiality issues, be very careful not to put any of those sorts of that sort of information or data into an open system.
The next question we have, do you all have a list of safe, closed systems that you recommend using? I don't know if any AI is safe now, but whatever
Yeah.
I
you
would
feel like.
say, I would
Go ahead.
share that many of our universities, and you might check with yours if you are associated with a university or a large healthcare organization, have enterprise level accounts. For example, the University of South Carolina, where I work, has an enterprise account of ChatGPT. So as long as I'm using ChatGPT within that enterprise account, the information is not shared with OpenAI.
I know that many universities are going to that. I don't specifically subscribe, and I think that's a very important thing, because remember that if a participant wants to drop out of your research, you cannot use their data. So how do you retrieve that from an AI system? That needs to be spelled out in an informed consent, that their data may be in a system that cannot be retrieved. That's something that the participant needs to know. We don't really subscribe to particular ones. I can only mention some that I've used. I know there's a list at our university of closed systems that students and faculty can access.
Yeah, Jean, thank you. So I would like to contribute to that. So if you are talking about the software like Atlas TI and Vivo, Max QD, all those are closed systems. They do have capability to generate, AI capability within their system, and that is safe to use as per the software company.
Have any of the researchers used AI for live transcription while audio recording for backup? Or do you use AI to transcribe audio recordings after the fact? I can say personally, I don't use AI for transcription for my research. I'm old school. I gotta say, I'm sad to say, I don't think it's old school, but I think that if you are the researcher, your participant is speaking to you, they trust you, you would then transcribe it the old-fashioned way of, listening, typing out. At times, you can hire a transcription company that is, that again, there's a trusted personnel there. Make sure that they're not using AI to do the work, but the details of the story you have to filter out first. That's a personal thing for me, but I will open it to my other panelists.
I can say I have also used AI transcription. Well, I do use it for my research, but like Dr. Horn, I still think there's a lot of value in that listening to the story, re-listening to the story, immersing yourself in the data. And so personally, what I do is I use the transcription, but then I re-listen to the entire interview while reading the transcript to ensure that I'm not missing any nuance. Like Dr. Neese had found the PowerPoint. I think unless you're listening and re-immersing yourself in that interview, there's a high chance that you could miss some nuances that are important in the interpretation.
In large data sets, if you are using data from multiple sites, one thing that you could do to ensure the rigor of your interpretation is to pull out, do a selection of deep interviewing and have teams set up to look at multiple interviews so that you stay very close to what the participant is saying, and also to make sure that your interpretive methodology is adhered to. Because remember, the machine picks out patterns. It may not pick out nuances in, say, word segments or stories, depending on which philosophical underpinning you're using to interpret.
I just wanted to add that if we use transcription using the AI, especially very much important, all those examples when I was discussing during the discussion, the loss of human interpretive depth, so like emotions, cultural aspect, what the participant is talking about. So peripheral level, surface level pattern recognition only it will do. It won't go down. So while it transcribe also, it won't catch all those emotions or the cultural level things. And even the accent also, it won't catch. So it is so much important to have human insight or human supervision when you are doing even the transcription or in the analytical level of qualitative research.
We have
It
one more
definitely
question.
doesn't. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Horn.
No, go ahead. I was going to read the next question. Keep going.
Oh, I just wanted to say it definitely does not pick up nuances. It doesn't pick up dialect. So you have to be very careful about that.
Has anyone studied how participants feel when AI is involved in data collection or analysis? And what are those participants actually saying?
Good question. I don't know. Has anyone looked at that? I know that were several studies that we looked at initially when we started this project that involved perceptions specifically for nursing students, because we were looking at use in qualitative research in nursing research. And they were some early studies, and I say 5 years, within the last 5, 6 years, that the nursing students themselves seem to have a positive perception. I think that would be very interesting if you looked at those results now, because of the time change and the different things that have come out about AI platforms and programs.
I will add, I recently did a presentation on AI in healthcare, and I was in the room. This was not a study, so I'm just gauging off of comments and feedback prior to and during the presentation. And I don't think a lot of people intellectually consider the depth of AI. During the presentation, a lot of people would say, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. So the studies right now, as AI is being uncovered, it's a living, breathing thing, right? And people are slowly coming to the realization of, what you put out there, is there out there forever, how it's being used, are they comfortable with it, are they uncomfortable with it? So right now, studying how people feel about it may be just a step ahead of the game, because it's so ingrained in everything you do that people don't really consider the full scope of the AI platform, right? We use ChatGPT to go up the street. We use it for directions. We use it for hey, my doctor said this. What do you think? That it's just become so ingrained in our everyday life. It's now like using the GPS. So I think as we spell it out in research, it prompts the participant to think about it in a deeper manner.
I wanted to add something else also. As we are another group, I am doing a Scopix review, research and nursing education and the students experience. In that we came to, so earlier days, how when it is started, when they introduced in the nursing education, these students were feeling very much anxiety they have because it's uncertainty when they start off with. So naturally, they were the participant, the students are the research participant, and they are using AI in that perspective. So they were anxious. So same way, the participant, as we don't know, we never used AI in any of our qualitative research, but naturally the participants may have anxiety.
I want to bring this question in from the chat that I think would be fruitful for more discussion. It says, are Zoom and qualitative data management programs HIPAA compliant?
Regular Zoom is not HIPAA compliant. So, but there are HIPAA compliant Zooms that you can access. And we actually use them at our university for distance site visits, for clinical visits, that sort of thing. And I have used HIPAA Zoom in previous qualitative research during the pandemic. I had a team and we conducted some research during the pandemic and used HIPAA compliant Zoom.
Yeah, adding to that, Zoom for Government, our university recently changed it to Zoom for Government, which is the reason is because it is HIPAA compliant. And the other question is about qualitative data management program. Are you talking about software? The softwares
like NVivo. And I just actually Googled NVivo and it says their transcription. Sorry, I'm just talking, but their transcription is HIPAA compliant. I don't know about the other ones, but NVivo,
yes,
Atlas, QDA, those.
Yeah, those are all supposed to be HIPAA compliant. Like, you actually download it and you have it in the downloaded system. So it's not like, you are actually sending these data to some cloud, right?
I will also say, you may not consider this, and it may be, something that you think it already know, but I just wanted to point out, if you're using the free version of anything, it's most likely not HIPAA compliant. So once you start to pay for a subscription, and you start to go into a more specific and explicit version of the software, I think you will be able to tap into, more of what the software can offer. But if you're using ChatGPT as a student and it's like the free version on Google, that's for sure not HIPAA compliant. I'm just saying that for any students in the room, unless you're paying for something and can read the disclosures, I wouldn't trust it. We have another question. We have some conversations going on in the chat, which is great. Sorry. There was one more on HIPAA, but I seem to have lost it.
Oh, I can read it. I can see it, Cassandra. Okay. Anyone know about HIPAA compliant photograph developers? I do not know. That's a very good question. Does anyone know?
I'm actually not familiar with the HIPAA compliant photograph developer. Is that like the photographs that are not, I guess, tied to, that are free for use? Is that what you're trying to?
No, we were planning on doing a study for photo voice. And in the clinical setting, that can be, so we're really going to have to put some brackets around, making sure that, yeah, we're trying to figure that out. I don't know yet.
Well, I think I would say that just like anything else, like, if you're using a transcription service, you want to make sure it is HIPAA compliant, right? So you have to work with the vendor or, whoever you're working with to make sure it is HIPAA compliant.
Yes. All aspects of it. That's correct. Yeah.
Those are all the questions
No,
I
there are
have in
some
the
more.
chat.
Oh, no? Okay. Okay, they are all suggestions. I'm sorry, comments. I thought they're suggestions.
Comments of appreciation.
Okay.
Well, I would like to express our appreciation from the Student Network Support Committee and the students. Really appreciate you all willing to pull this together for us, and looks like we've had a lot of participation. So once again, thank you very much. Very valuable information, important conversations, and thank you so much for your time.
There
Thank
was a
you very
question.
much for the, thank
I'm
you
sorry,
for the
there was a
invitation.
question
Yeah.
about
Bye.
sharing slides. I
Oh.
just didn't know what was a SNRS policy regarding that.
This presentation will be recorded and it will be posted on the Student Network page. So it will be available in that way.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for the invitation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
I think Cindy made me the host as she left, so I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting for everyone.
Oh, you want to stay a little bit or?
I don't know if it's still recording, so I don't know
Okay.
if we want to debrief on a different call, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you all.